Hey folks, tonight we're kicking things off with the scorching, suit-caked saga of a man who quite literally hammered the medieval world into shape. The blacksmith. You've probably seen M in movies, swinging hammers in glorious slow motion while sparks fly around like it's the 4th of July. But trust me, the real deal was about as glamorous as doing hot yoga inside a barbecue pit. Being a blacksmith in the Middle Ages wasn't a dramatic training montage, was a smoky, sweaty, soul-melting grind that gave you more blisters than compliments. And yeah, it kinda sucked, so before you settle in, take a second to like the video and hit that subscribe button, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment to tell me where you're tuning in from and what time it is there. Always fun to see the global gang gathering now. Dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that peaceful background hum, and let's tiptoe back in time together. You were born into the proud and perpetually dirty bloodline of medieval blacksmiths. No crowns, no land, no cool titles, just the family forge. Anvil-shaped hand blisters, and the smell of roasted iron baked into your baby blanket, the second you could toddle without face-planting into the fire pit. You were considered ready to help. By age 6, congratulations, you're now your dad's apprentice. Which is just a fancy way of saying, you're the tiny, unpaid intern with zero rights and a face permanently smeared with soot. Your toys. Tongs, your playground. A dirt floor hotter than a dragon's breath. While the village kids are out chasing chickens and playing tag, you're playing how not to die beside molten metal. Fun games include Guess How Hot This Is with your hand, hold the hammer until your arms fall off, and try not to cry when you ruin the nail. Again, your dad, the master blacksmith, is built like a brick wall and communicates exclusively in grunts and hit it harder. His hands feel like tree bark. His face is a scowl forged by decades of smoke and tax collectors. And his hugs, well, they don't exist. He teaches you everything. How to shape iron. Stoke the fire and keep your mouth shut when a knight says your sword looks weird. Ask a question and you're rewarded with a flying horseshoe and the silent treatment for a week. Holidays. Adorable. You don't get those. The forge never sleeps and neither do you. Somebody always needs something sharpened, fixed, or reforged. You learn fast that free time means there's something you forgot to do. Sure, you're learning a trade, but mostly you're learning to endure pain, withstand heat, and nap standing up. By age 10, you smell like iron, curse like a miner, and have the upper body strength of a small ox. Meanwhile, your dog has probably run away because of all the clanging. This is your life now. Welcome to the family business. Hope you like sweating, choking on smoke, and early onset back pain. Think you'd get a few years of childhood before the hammer came down? Think again. Childhood in the blacksmith world is more of a rumor than a phase. Once you can lift a bucket without falling over, you're hired. No playtime, no toys, just a workplace full of sharp tools and open flames. Your jungle gym. A rack of tongs next to a pit of glowing coal. One wrong move and boom, you're learning how fast skin sizzles before dad notices. Your job title may be apprentice, but really it means do everything no one else wants to and get yelled at. Anyway, stoke the fire, pump the bellows, sweep the floor. Clean the tools, stack the coal, and don't get impaled by falling hardware. All before breakfast, payment. A chunk of bread, a stern nod, and maybe just maybe a grunt that loosely translates to not totally useless. Meanwhile, your old buddies are out frolicking in the fields, learning how to milk goats and toss sticks. You envy them, even if they do smell like cheese and sadness. Sure, they'll grow up to be farmers, but at least farmers don't accidentally set themselves on fire. You, on the other hand, are hand-making nails. Thousands of them. Twisted, bent, reheated, reshaped again and again just to hold together some rich guy's chicken coop, if you're lucky. Dad lets you swing the hammer. on your own right after, pointing out every last thing you're doing wrong. And don't even think about saying, "I'm tired." That word doesn't exist here. Tired is for poets. Burnout is for candles. Keep hammering, keep sweating. Keep smiling, or at least try not to cry where anyone can see. Because, to your dad/boss, you're no longer a kid. You're a blacksmith in training. And this training, it never ends. The forge isn't just where you work, becomes your entire identity. It dominates your senses, reshapes your body, and basically scrambles your brain chemistry by the time you hit your teenage years. The forge doesn't even feel like a place, it's like a wild, smoky beast you've got to tame daily. You recognize every sound, the wheeze of the bellows, the hiss of iron in water, the sharp clank of hammer on metal. It's like a sweaty symphony, and your body's moving to its rhythm. Even half asleep, you don't stop noticing the heat because it gets easier. You stop because you've accepted it, like gravity or taxes. You know which stones scorch your behind, which coals burn fastest, and which floorboards are secretly trying to assassinate your toes. Your skin's darker from smoke than sun. Your clothes same crusty tunic and leather apron every day smell like burnt wool, grease, and existential dread. You don't own much, but you do own this forge. Spiritually, anyway. Legally, Dad's still the boss. But in reality, it owns you. Silence becomes creepy. When the forge goes quiet, you twitch. Like someone stopped playing a song you've been hearing your whole life. He's probably at the forge, becomes your social status. You're not just a blacksmith, you are the forge. A walking, two-legged fire machine. And weirdly enough, part of you starts to love it. Not the burns or blisters, but that moment. When you get it right, when the horseshoe fits, when the blade gleams, when you shape metal with your will. For one shining second, you're not just a soot-covered kid. You're a creator. A vital cog in the medieval machine. Then the moment passes. Another order comes in. The fire roars. And you're back to work by the time your friends are just figuring out how their limbs work. Yours already feel like they've survived a siege. They're growing up. You're breaking down. Sure, your arms are beefy, but not in the knight wielding a sword way. It's more like teenager who's been repeatedly mugged by anvils. Your back, bent like a question mark. Your knees creak, your shoulders pop with every swing of the hammer, which is Yano constant. Now let's talk about your hands. Once you had fingers, now you've got soot-stained talons. Blistered, cracked, and blackened fingernails that no amount of scrubbing can fix. Burns are a daily occurrence. Cuts are just part of the vibe. When someone hands you bread, you hold it like it's a glass hedgehog because your fingers feel cursed by a wizard with arthritis. And forget healing. Pulled a muscle, keep working. Sprained a wrist, use the other one. The forge doesn't care. Iron doesn't wait. You'd think all this would lead to deep, dreamless sleep. Nope. You ache too much to lie still. Your ears are still ringing. Your arms twitch like you're shadowboxing ghosts. You hurt in places you didn't know had names. You smell like agony. Even your pain has pain. And what does your father say about all this? Good, you're learning. And, strangely, you are. Not despite the pain, but because of it. You're being forged too. Hardened, shaped by fire. Pressure and the endless beat of hammer on metal. But don't get too proud. Because by the time you hit adulthood, your body already feels like it lived to full lives and died halfway through both. And the worst part, you're just getting started. In most jobs, smoke is just a nuisance. In your job, it's a coworker. And a particularly rude one. The forge isn't merely hot, it's a medieval gas chamber. Every breath comes seasoned with the fine perfume of coal dust, scorched iron, ashes, and despair. If you can see more than 6 feet ahead, congrats, someone forgot to light the fire. There's no chimney, Just a sad hole in the roof that lets in more smoke than it lets out. Try opening a window. Oh, that's cute. There is no window. Just soot-coated walls, your father's wheezing cough, and the occasional gust of wind that somehow finds a way to blow smoke directly into your eyeballs, your lungs. They've officially entered a toxic long-term relationship with smoke. At first, it burns, then it irritates. Eventually, it just ... exists. Coughing fits become part of your daily rhythm. Black mucus. Not great, but hey, at least it's consistent. You've reached the point where fresh air feels suspicious. Your voice. Less young blacksmith and more goat farmer who gargles lava. Words come out scratchy, breaths get shorter, and your throat feels like it's hosting a sandstorm. But you keep working, because you have to. And the smoke? It's just one ingredient in your daily poison cocktail. You've got metal dust from grinding, oil fumes from quenching, and the delightful scent of burnt leather, charred wood, and whatever random thing fell into the coals that day. You've probably inhaled 3 new diseases before lunch. Protective gear. You mean this rag tied around your face? It's basically a sweat sponge that somehow smells worse than the smoke itself. You pull it down just to breathe a little better, and immediately regret it. Long-term effects. Oh, chronic cough, asthma, early death. All part of the perks package. But you're not thinking about that? You're thinking about finishing that gate hinge before your father notices its crooked dot in your world. Clean air isn't. A luxury, it's a foreign concept. You don't breathe to live. You breathe so you can keep hammering. At this point, your tools are like family. Dysfunctional, abusive family. Your hammer. It's an extension of your arm. You've named it. You've cursed it. Your shoulder now clicks every time you raise it, like a haunted maraca. Without it, you're just some sweaty dude in a smoky hut. Your tongs. Useless. They pinch, slip, and burn your fingers more often than they grip anything. Your dad yells, "Grip it like you mean it." You consider throwing them into the fire out of spite. The chisel used to be sharp. It's more of a philosophical concept. You've used it to carve, split, pry open stuck doors. And occasionally, as a crowbar for neighbor drama, your tool bench looks like a medieval torture rack. Files, awls, punches, rivet sets, every single one has injured you. Your fingers, now, flinch at the sight of new tools. Your apron, supposed to protect you. In reality, it catches hot metal bits and holds them against your body like a smoldering bear hug. It's more scorched leather than clothing at this point, stiff as a corpse every winter. And still, you care for your tools like they're your children. You sharpen them, oil them, line them up each night like soldiers. Because if one breaks, you don't eat. No tools, no coin. No coin, no food. Your livelihood depends on this rusty collection of traitors. But don't be fooled. They hate you. They whisper, "We help you survive. But we'll also destroy your hands, your spine, and your sanity." And you just nod. Yeah? Now pass. Me, the hammer. You don't wear a crown, wield a sword, or lead armies. But without you, the whole village grinds to a halt by Tuesday. You're the blacksmith. Everyone needs you. All the time. For everything, you're the medieval version of customer support. Tech help and emergency roadside assistance wrapped in soot and smelling like shame. Knight needs a new sword. That's you. Farmer's plow broke again. You. Monk's bell cracked. Baker's oven door jammed. Shepherd's gate latch is acting up. Yep, all you. And they all show up right in the middle of your swing, looking surprised that you're busy. "I know you're working," they say. "But could you just..." Ah, yes. The cursed phrase, "Could you just..." And don't expect a thank you. They act like it's your divine duty. If their hoe works, or their door closes, or their shield holds, they nod like you're lucky to be of service. Like you should feel honored to repair their rusty ladle at sunset for half a loaf of stale bread. Payment is flexible. 6 times. Coin. Sometimes a chicken. Once, a dead chicken. Spoiler, not good soup. You also get blamed for everything. Bent hinges. Must be your fault. Broken dagger from a bar brawl. Fix it. Weird piece of iron nobody can identify, but definitely needs fixing. Yep. Still you, yet. When praise is handed out, it's always the knight, the priest, or the miller with the extra chubby goat. You, your background noise? Reliable tool, not a person. But here's the secret. You know they couldn't last a week without you. Fields would stall, doors would fall off, horses would limp. Their lives quietly run on the sweat of your brow and the clang of your hammer. You'd think peace would be a blessing, no bandits. No angry nobles demanding swords by sundown. But for you, peace is terrible for business. Sure, you make plows and hinges, but war pays. When fighting breaks out, you're suddenly everyone's favorite. Orders flood in. Weapons, armor, arrowheads, ivens, even horseshoes wear out faster under. War horses dot the forge, burns hot. Coins roll in. You're exhausted, but well fed. Ale debts get paid for once, then the war ends. Local lord signs a truce. Soldiers go home. Your backlog disappears. Suddenly, you're sharpening sickles for onion payments again. Yes, you can still make cauldrons and door handles, but the profit. Laughable. Everyone wants a wizard's handiwork at stable boy prices. You become blacksmith, negotiator, and part-time beggar. Try raising prices. They look at you like you just hexed their cow. But you're just hammering metal, they say. As if iron shapes itself into a horseshoe while humming hymns. You start missing the war, not the blood. Mind you, the purpose, the work, the noise, the thrill of nights queuing with broken gear and heavy coin purses. Now you're fixing antique tools and making keys for doors nobody locks. Peace means safety for them. For you, it means hunger. And though you'd never say it aloud, sometimes a small part of you whispers, maybe just a tiny skirmish, minor border scuffle, just enough to get the forge roaring again. Because when swords break, you eat, some jobs have an end, a finish line, a thank you, a warm bowl of stew. Blacksmithing isn't one of those jobs. Your work is never done. Not today, not tomorrow. Not even in your dreams. You fix one thing, and 3 more break. Ah, the life of a humble village blacksmith. One moment you're fixing a gate hinge. Next, the cart's lost a wheel. And before you can blink, you're halfway through a batch of nails when bound. Some bloke shows up demanding 10 more, but longer. This time, he says, "Oh, and by the way, I can't pay you till harvest." Naturally, you're up before the rooster even thinks about crowing and collapse long after the sun has done its disappearing act behind the trees. Even then, your brain's still clanging away, dreaming of bellows, sparks, and that one fellow who still owes you half a dozen eggs and a thank you. The quick jobs, they never are. A villager strolls in, cradling what was once a rake. Just a wee fix, they say cheerfully. Sure, just 2 hours of reshaping, reheating, hammering, and offering a polite nod every 5 minutes when they ask, "Is it ready yet?" And just when you dare to think you might sit down, maybe sip something that isn't smoky and lukewarm, your apprentice comes barreling in. The friar's horse threw a shoe. Of course it did, 'cause you, dear smith, are the village's last resort. Not just for iron, but everything. The forge never rests. The fire won't stoke itself. Your tools rust the moment you blink. The anvil shifts with the summer heat, and the bellows crack in the winter cold. Everything's either broken or just about to be. Even the Lord's Day provides no sanctuary. Sunday's technically a rest day, unless someone's ox cart breaks en route to market. Then it's back to the apron, half awake. Hammering while praying the priest doesn't catch you working on holy ground. You don't keep a to-do list. That'd imply you could finish it. But blacksmithing isn't a job, it's a cycle. Work, fix, repeat until either your hammer breaks, or you do. And the worst part, you kinda love it. You'd think all this iron thumping would earn you at least a hot meal and a full night's sleep. Think again. Food and rest. Luxuries, right up there with clean water and villagers who say, please, let's talk grub. You burn calories like a runaway mule. What's your reward? A hunk of coarse bread. A bowl of yesterday's cold pottage, with possibly the ghost of a turnip. Maybe a bit of salted pork, if it's a feast day. Spoiler, it isn't. You eat standing, one hand on your tongs, the other shielding your food from flying embers. Meals are grunted conversations. And if someone knocks mid-bite because their door latch is sticky, congratulations, you're eating ash stew now. You don't eat to enjoy. You eat to survive. Fuel in, hammer out. Sleep. Ah, yes, the cruel jester. You crawl into bed, back howling, ears ringing from a day of iron symphonies. Your mattress. A straw sack, either too lumpy, too flat, or possibly alive. Your blanket. A scorched wool sheet steeped in smoke, ale, and regret. And just as sleep tiptoes in, your brain reminds you there's that order you forgot, the hinge that cracked weird, the payment you never got for that wheel 3 weeks ago. Sleep becomes negotiation. Can I delay repairs to days without angry fist banging at dawn? Probably not. Midnight surprises. Oh, they come. A horse throws a shoe. A storm yanks a door off its hinges. A noble needs his sword sharpened right now before a hunt. Because, clearly, you don't need rest. You get by on stolen bites and half-naps. Sheer stubbornness fuels your productivity. Food and sleep aren't breaks, they're the intermissions between hammer swings. Eat when you can. Sleep if allowed. And pray the fire doesn't go out while you're dreaming. Now, your hands. Once soft, maybe, as a child. Now ruined. They're tools in their own right. Swollen, cracked, so calloused they barely feel anything except pain. Writing, forget it. Bootlaces. A challenge, but grabbing red-hot tongs. Instinct, you've been burned so much. Pain's more of a suggestion. Your joints creak like haunted floorboards. Knuckles look mugged. Your palms. A topographic map of blisters, old and new, layered like tree rings. 5 or more. Summer fingernails. Lost more than you've kept. One time, your thumb turned black for 2 weeks. Did you stop? No. Switched hands, grunted more. Cuts constant. Sometimes from files. Sometimes the iron bites back. Weekly blood loss, guaranteed. Rap, curse, work, and the burns. Oh, the burns. Some are small, others sizzle, bubble, scar. You've branded yourself more than most cattle. You've made peace with it. Your grip strength? Incredible. You could crush walnuts for fun. Dexterity? Gone. Fingers tremble and then cold. You're 30, but your hands belong to a retired knight with dice debts and arthritis. And yet, they're your lifeline. They forge blades, fix hinges. Wield the hammer that wields your name. They hurt always, but they work. As for smell, let's just say subtlety isn't your strong suit. You haven't smelled clean since age 5. The moment you became your father's. Apprentice, your scent turned permanently to burnt bacon in a boot. The forge burns, and so do you. Smoke clings like a jealous lover. Your sweat. Less human, more smoked ham left in the sun. Technically, you could bathe, but water's cold. You're working 6 days a week, and by sunrise, you're already filthy. What's the point? Your clothes haven't been cleaned since the last festival, and, even then, someone spilled ale on them by noon. Now they just hang on you like a protective crust of soot and suffering. Tried perfume once, it surrendered after 10 minutes. Flowers wilt near you. Cats hiss. Bread molds faster in your presence. You walk into a tavern. The crowd parts like a miracle. The innkeeper seats you by the window for ventilation. Not courtesy, survival. But hey, at least they know you. That's the blacksmith. They say half respect, half nasal concern. You're not the most charming man in town, but by heavens, you're the most aromatic. Smelling like fire means you're working. Smelling like iron means you're crafting. Smelling like a regretful leather boot left in a chimney. That's just professionalism. You didn't choose this life. The forge chose you. Passed down from your father through his blistered hands and iron expectations. And now you're doing the same. Your boy doesn't chase frogs or pretend to be a knight. He fetches coal, pumps the bellows, holds the tongs while sparks fly, and you mutter, "Don't flinch." He's maybe 7 and already smells like scorched burlap and destiny. You feel a twinge of guilt, but only a twinge. You're not cruel. You're preparing him. This is the trade. This is survival. He watches you swing the hammer with eyes wide, half in awe, half in fear. You remember that look. It's the same one you once gave your father back when he seemed like a mountain. Now you know better. He wasn't made of stone. He was made of iron, and so are you. The principle of correspondence tells us that the microcosm and the macrocosm are like twin jesters. What unfolds in the heavens is echoed in the depths of the human soul. And what gets stirred up in the laboratory reverberates through the cosmos. The emerald tablet didn't come with a recipe for turning lead into gold. It handed over a whole worldview. It declared that the world isn't set in stone. Everything can be refined, uplifted, transmuted. Not only can dull lead be morphed into shining gold, but ignorance can be transformed into wisdom. Chaos can mellow into harmony. And the mortal can ascend toward the divine. The tablet also speaks of one supreme substance, the fountainhead of all creation, which rises from the earth and cascades down from the heavens, carrying the might of all things in its wake. Some called this substance the philosopher's stone. Others saw it as the soul, the ether, or even consciousness itself. Yet, perhaps the greatest enigma wasn't so much the tablet's content as it was who could truly grasp it. You couldn't simply be a scholar. You had to be a true seeker. It was this sacred riddle, bestowed by Thoth, that would outlast even the fall of Egypt. Passing like a torch across nations and ages, first lighting the way in Persia, then spreading its glow around the world as Egypt's golden age dimmed. And when alchemy crossed into Persia, it wasn't a mere handover of dusty old lore. In Persia, alchemy transformed melting mystical fire with a hearty dose of philosophical depth. The bedrock of Persian alchemy was steeped in Zoroastrianism, one of the world's most ancient monotheistic faiths, where the eternal struggle between light and darkness, truth and deceit, purity and corruption was ever present. Fire, the purest element in Zoroastrian thought, wasn't just an emblem. It was holy. It burned in temples, symbolizing divine wisdom, and lit the crucibles in which early Persian alchemists toiled. Yet, while spiritual fires burned bright, it was a Greek-Egyptian mystic named Zosimos of Panopolis who first gave alchemy its true voice, a voice that still echoes through the ages. Living in Roman Egypt around the 3rd or 4th century CE, Zosimos wasn't your run-of-the-mill philosopher. His writings wove together detailed instructions on furnaces, stills, and elixirs with wildly visionary journeys. In his most famous dream, he saw himself torn asunder, burned, and remade inside an alchemical furnace, rather than a tale of terror. This vision was divine, a symbolic death of the old self and a purification of the soul. Zosimos believed that alchemy wasn't merely about transmuting metals. The alchemist had to be transformed too. Just as base matter had to be broken down before it could become gold, the alchemist must suffer, purify, and transcend. In his words, alchemy was the great mystery of both spirit and substance. He even introduced the idea of spiritual alchemy, a notion far ahead of its time. His writings brimmed with odd symbols: lions devouring serpents, men melting into colored vapors, divine beings emerging from fire. These weren't chemical formulas. They were metaphors charting the soul's journey toward perfection. Zosimos also stressed that true knowledge couldn't be purchased or memorized, it had to be earned. The path of the alchemist was paved with discipline, suffering, and moments of revelation. His influence would ripple through the centuries and across continents. And though many of his texts were later lost or misread, one thing was clear: alchemy was no longer a mere proto-science. It had become a sacred philosophy, as the embers of ancient wisdom flickered over the ruins of Egypt, Greece, and Persia. A new empire rose, a golden age under the banner of Islam. From the 8th to the 13th century, a vast intellectual renaissance bloomed. While Europe languished in what they called the Dark Ages, cities like Baghdad, Cairo, and Cordoba blossomed into havens for philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, and alchemy. At the heart of this revival stood a man whose name would turn legend: Jabir ibn Hayyon, known out west as Geber. More than a chemist or philosopher, Jabir was a fusion of both, of often hailed as the father of chemistry. His contributions to alchemy were so groundbreaking that they laid the very foundation for modern science. Working under the Abbasid caliphs in the 8th century, Jabir approached alchemy not as hazy mysticism, but as a structured, testable discipline. He introduced laboratory methods still familiar today: distillation, crystallization, sublimation. He invented new instruments, refined acids, and authored over 100 texts blending philosophical musings with chemical experiments. And yet, he never forsook the spiritual roots of the craft. Jabir was convinced that everything in the universe was made up of the 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water, each infused with its own spiritual quality. His system wove together numerology, astrology, and symbolism, positing that every material transformation mirrored a deeper metamorphosis in the soul. He also introduced the idea of balance, or Manser, as the keystone of alchemy. Just as a body must be balanced to thrive, so must metals be perfectly aligned to reach their ideal form. Gold wasn't merely another metal to Jabir, it was matter, in flawless equilibrium. And if balance could be attained through careful processes, even the most humble metal could be exalted. Jabir's influence soon leaped beyond Islamic borders. Over time, his texts were translated into Latin and circulated across medieval Europe, sparking a wave of Western alchemists who built upon his teachings, often without even knowing they were standing on the shoulders of a Persian genius. Through Jabir, alchemy took its most decisive stride forward. It wasn't just about sacred symbolism anymore. It had evolved into a method, a system, a bona fide science, while still remaining a guide to both material and divine transformation. As the Islamic world preserved and expanded ancient knowledge, Europe remained shrouded in superstition and spiritual rigidity. Yet knowledge has a knack for traveling, especially when it's too potent to be locked away. Slowly, piece by piece, alchemy trickled westwards, muggled through language, ink, and conquest. The bridge between East and West was built in places like Alexandria, once home to the Great Library, and later Toledo and Cordoba in Islamic Spain. Here, scholars of every faith, Christian, Jewish, and Muslim, worked side by side in rare moments of harmony, while translators labored over Arabic manuscripts to unlock the secrets penned by Jabir, Zosimos, and Aristotle. By the 12th century, Europe was starving for knowledge, and the rediscovery of these ancient texts, especially on alchemy, set off a cultural explosion. But what came over wasn't just the practical science of chemistry, was alchemy in its full regalia. A mesmerizing blend of spirit, matter, and meaning. Monasteries began hiding these enigmatic manuscripts behind sacred scripture, and monks started experimenting with metals not only to purify them, but to purify themselves. In secret chambers lit by candlelight, European minds became enamored with one brilliant idea: transmutation. The belief that base metals could be transformed into gold, and that the human soul could likewise be refined into something divine. One of the most influential texts to reach Europe was the Turba Philosophorum, the assembly of the philosophers, a mysterious dialogue among ancient sages about nature's secrets. Then came the Picatrix, a massive Arabic grimoire chock-full of astrological and alchemical symbolism. These works didn't merely pass on recipes, they conveyed entire worldviews, planting seeds in inquisitive minds. The Latin translations of these texts circulated quietly, often disguised as religious or philosophical treatises to dodge accusations of heresy. After all, alchemy was a dangerous challenge to the established order. If lead could be turned into gold, then perhaps a peasant could become noble, or a mortal could become divine. The Church watched with wary eyes, but alchemy's allure was too potent. It offered a clandestine path to perfection outside the strictures of dogma and authority. By the late Middle Ages, Europe had seized the torch, the flame that once ignited. In Egypt, Persia, and Baghdad now flickered in castles, monasteries, and secret societies. Alchemy had crossed a threshold and was set to evolve once more. The alchemist's spirit still echoes, even within the realm of science. Chemists continue to transmute elements in nuclear reactors, while physicists speak with awe of dark matter and unified fields. Concepts that mirror the wonder alchemists once held for ether and quintessence. The search for the universe's fundamental building blocks carries on, though the language has evolved. Yet perhaps the greatest gift alchemy bestowed upon us is its insistence on wholeness. It never divorced spirit from matter or science from mystery. Alchemy teaches that the transformation of the world begins with the transformation of the self. Behind every experiment lies a sacred question. Who are you becoming in the process? In a world driven by speed, technology, and the cold precision of data, alchemy whispers an ancient truth: to change anything truly, you must first be willing to change yourself. And so, the alchemist's fire still burns not in crucibles, but in hearts, waiting, calling, transforming. For alchemy was never merely a science. It was a mirror. At first glance, Cappadocia might seem like a surreal painting, its surface dotted with towering stone chimneys and ridges shaped by wind and time. Tourists marvel at its strange beauty, but few realize that the real wonder lies beneath their feet. Deep beneath this Turkish landscape is a forgotten world, a labyrinth of subterranean cities stretching for miles. These aren't just caves or makeshift shelters. Entire urban complexes are hidden underground, complete with homes, chapels, wells, food storage, stables, and even schools. Some cities go as deep as 18 stories, housing thousands in the shadows of the earth. The most astonishing part: many of these cities remained unknown until the mid-20th century. In 1963, a man renovating his home in the town of Derinkuy knocked down a wall in his basement, and behind it, he found a tunnel. This tunnel led to more tunnels, to chambers, and eventually to a spiral staircase. He had stumbled upon one of the largest underground cities in the world. It was as if an entire civilization had vanished beneath the ground, Leaving behind? No trace, but silence. But Deringue was just one of many. Over the decades, archaeologists have discovered hundreds of underground settlements across Cappadocia. At least 40 major ones, interconnected by narrow corridors and secret escape routes. These were not random burrows. They were carefully planned and engineered. Massive stone doors sealed off passageways, while ventilation shafts brought fresh air from the surface. And wells tapped into underground aquifers to ensure fresh water. Even under siege, why would anyone build such elaborate cities beneath the earth? Theories abound. Were these cities hiding from invading armies, serving as monastic refuges, spiritual sanctuaries, or something far older and more mysterious? Whatever the reason, one thing is clear: Cappadocia was more than just a region. It was a refuge. World beneath the world, where thousands could disappear from the surface and live entirely underground. And the deeper you go into these cities, the stranger the story becomes. To understand why people built cities beneath Cappadocia, we must first understand the land itself. For Cappadocia is no ordinary terrain. Millions of years ago, violent volcanic eruptions buried central Turkey under layers of ash. That ash, eventually, hardened into a soft, porous rock called tufa material, light enough to carve with simple tools, yet strong enough to endure for centuries. Over time, rain and wind shaped the rock into strange formations, fairy chimneys, conical towers, mushroom-like spires. The entire region looked like something torn from a dream or another planet. But the ancient people didn't just marvel at the rock. They worked with it. Early settlers realized that this volcanic stone was a gift. They carved homes, chapels, storage rooms, even entire complexes, without needing lumber or bricks. Unlike above-ground dwellings, these stone chambers stayed cool in the scorching summer and warm during freezing winters. Above ground, they carved churches into cliff faces. But it was below ground that the real magic happened. It likely started with simple caves, small hideaways for food storage, heat relief, or shelter from storms. But over time, as threats grew and communities expanded, these caves grew too. They evolved into interconnected rooms, levels, and networks. And once the digging began, it never stopped. Entire societies vanished beneath the soil, carving deeper and deeper, not randomly, but with intention. Tunnels connected homes to kitchens, stables to wells, rooms to chapels. They even created ventilation shafts that reached the surface and filtered fresh air through multiple levels. They dug vertical staircases wide enough for people and livestock, but narrow enough to defend. What's truly remarkable is how ancient these structures might be. While many underground cities were expanded during the Byzantine era, some archaeologists believe the original levels, especially in places like Deringue and Kamakla, date back to the Hittite Empire. Or even earlier, around 2000 BCE, the people of Cappadocia shaped the earth not with machines, but with patience, vision, and a focus on survival. The earth was not just a foundation. It was a shelter, a fortress, a second sky only inverted and filled with secrets. But what were they hiding from? That's the question we explore next. Beneath the quiet town of Deringue lies something extraordinary, a city not above the earth, but deep beneath it. No one knew it existed until 1963, when a man doing renovations in his home knocked down a wall and found a dark tunnel stretching beyond sight. The tunnel led to chambers, corridors, and staircases that spiraled downward, leading from room to room, level to level, until explorers found themselves standing 18 stories below the surface. They had uncovered Deringue, the largest and deepest underground city ever found in Cappadocia and, possibly, in the world. What archaeologists discovered was staggering. This wasn't just a temporary hideout or emergency shelter. Deringue was a living city, carved entirely from volcanic stone. It had homes, churches, communal kitchens, wine and oil presses, storage, rooms, schools, and even a baptismal chamber. It could house an estimated 20,000 people, along with their livestock and food supplies. The city was engineered with remarkable precision. Massive rolling stone doors, shaped like millstones, could be pushed to seal off tunnels in case of attack. These weren't simple blocks. They were perfectly fitted and nearly impossible to force open from the outside. Ventilation shafts snaked upward, delivering fresh air to the deepest levels. Wells tapped into underground aquifers, providing water without surfacing. There was even a school, suggesting this city wasn't just about survival, was about continuity, teaching, worship, and community. But here's what makes Derinkyuu so mysterious. We don't really know who first built it or why. Some believe it was expanded by early Christians fleeing Roman or Arab persecution. Others argue the foundations are far older, perhaps dating back to the Hittites or even earlier. Why go to such extraordinary lengths to disappear underground? Was it to escape invaders, as many believe, or was the threat not human at all? Derinkyuu holds no inscriptions, no names, no definitive timeline, just rooms, tunnels, and questions. And even today, much of it remains unexplored. The deeper you go, the less it feels like a city, and the more it feels like something else. To build downward is far more complex than building up. There's no sunlight, no scaffolding, no wide-open skies, just solid stone and shadow. Yet the architects of Cappadocia's underground cities didn't just dig. They designed with remarkable intelligence and precision, creating spaces that could support thousands of lives for months, perhaps even years, at a time. But these weren't frantic rabbit holes dug in terror. Nay, they were blueprints carved in stone, layered like a well-guarded onion. Each stratum with its own divine purpose. The upper levels? That's where the folks dwelt. Close enough, too. Scamper back outside once danger had passed, but descend deeper and you'd find bustling kitchens, hardy workshops, granaries bursting with grain, and even cozy stables for the beasts cleverly arranged to avoid any rogue fire from running. Rampant now. Let me tell thee of a marvel that'd make even Merlin raise an eyebrow: the ventilation. Tall, narrow shafts spiraled through solid rock, breathing air through up to 18 levels of the underworld. Some plunged 50 meters deep, yet managed to whisk fresh air all the way to the bottom. No fans, no spells, just gravity and genius. Water, the sacred lifeblood of survival. These cities wrap themselves around underground aquifers. Wells could be drawn from the inside, so no soul need risk their necks above. In some clever towns, they sealed the well tops tight, just in case some villain thought to poison the lot. And get this: secret tunnels, like veins of the earth herself, wove from one hideaway to another. Some led to nearby chambers, others to entirely different cities. A swift-footed messenger could vanish into the soil, slip through the dark, and pop up a village away before you'd even noticed. Their defenses? Oh, they were devilishly simple. Tiny corridors forced invaders to queue up like impatient pilgrims. Trapdoors dropped from nowhere. And let's not forget the legendary rolling stone doors, massive discs of doom, rolled shut in seconds. From the outside, it's just another part of the wall from the inside. A fortress within a fortress. Every arch, every tunnel whispered the same truth. This was no temporary hideout. This was a world built for the long haul, not just for days, not even for months, for years. Which begs the question, dear listener, what terrible force demanded such preparation? And did it ever truly go away? For centuries, scholars and storytellers alike have wondered who were the people of Cappadocia hiding from. Was it war? Was it something far darker? Most point to invaders. You see, central Anatolia was the crossroads of many mighty empires. Assyrians, Persians, Romans, Byzantines all took a turn swinging their swords. Later, Arab raids drove Christian folk underground, vanishing into the rock like ghosts waiting for calm skies. But here's the rub: the sheer scale and depth of these cities defy the idea of a desperate last-minute burrow. This wasn't a foxhole. It was a cathedral carved over generations. Some tunnels might even predate Christianity itself. So who struck the first chisel? Some say the Hittites nearly 4 millennia ago. Others claim the Phrygians took those tunnels and kept digging. But history, she's as quiet as the tunnels themselves. No runes, no scribbles. Not even a cave doodle to say who first vanished beneath the soil or why. And that's where the wild tales begin. Some whisper it wasn't men they hid from, but the wrath of the world itself. Natural disasters, solar flares, ancient wars that scorch the sky and foul the land. Others whisper of beings not of this earth. Watchers, sky gods, creatures from the stars. The kind that don't just invade, they hunt. It's a tempting thought. The hidden air shafts, the secret exits, the rolling stone doors. Everything about these cities screams not just defense, but disappearance. And while such theories are far-fetched, they all circle one truth. The true reason remains buried. No matter how many tunnels we unearth, the question echoes louder than ever: what were they hiding from? And did it ever find them? Now, imagine life in such a place. Not for a night, not for a season, but for years underground. No sun, no bird song. Just stone walls, flickering oil lamps, and the hushed rhythm of survival. This was home for thousands in Cappadocia when doom loomed above. Yet, these cities weren't cold tombs. They pulsed with life. Families dwelt in little chambers. Clay ovens baked bread, filling the halls with the smell of hope and goat. Churches stood carved in stone, crosses etched, altars placed, frescoes kissed by flickering light. Children learned their letters. Elders prayed, communities held meetings. And voices echoed down tunnels like ghostly hymns. Oil lamps lined the paths, their smoke carried out through cleverly placed shafts that doubled as the city's lungs. But make no mistake, was no picnic. Fresh air was precious, light was weak, and the silence, oh, it was thick as stew. Water came from deep wells. Grain was sealed in stone silos. And yes, even underground, there were wine presses and olive oil vats, because what's life without a little indulgence? Even the livestock had their place pens near the entrances for sheep, goats, and chickens. Their bleating not just a source of meat and milk, but warmth and routine. The architects knew their craft. Homes gave privacy. Halls gave community. It wasn't just hiding. It was preservation of faith, of culture, of people. As war raged above, life continued below, lit by fire and fueled by purpose. Weddings were held. Children were born. The dead were mourned, all beneath layers of rock, too. Live underground wasn't weakness. It was wisdom, and it didn't stop with one city. Beneath the valleys and hills of this volcanic realm lies a network, a spider's web of chambers, tunnels, and secrets. Derinque, Kamakli, Skonok, maybe not isolated hideouts, but limbs of a single underground kingdom. Some tunnels stretch for kilometers, winding like roots beneath the land. Narrow as a man's shoulders, dark as midnight. They likely carried messages, food, and people from one hidden haven to the next. In fact, Derinque and Kamakli, two of the mightiest underground cities, are believed to be joined by a 9-kilometer tunnel, a secret path beneath the earth. That's not just clever, that's coordinated. That's a civilization, not just survivors. These tunnels were fortified too. Choke points, blind turns, trapdoors that dropped like guillotine blades. Stone stoppers to seal invaders in a rocky tomb. Yet the full map? We're still drawing it in 2014 while poking around in Nevi here. A new underground complex was stumbled upon, possibly even bigger than During Q, with aqueducts, temples, and a bounty of unexplored tunnels. So again, the question echoes, were these just escape routes, or the foundation of a secret society that chose to live where no sun could reach? Because the deeper we dig, the more it seems Cappadocia wasn't just a place to hide. It was a world unto itself, planned, connected, and hidden beneath our feet for thousands of years. Maybe, just maybe, there's more still waiting beneath our feet. Whole cities, not buried by time's slow hand, but hidden on purpose, as if the earth herself whispered, this one's a secret. For in Cappadocia, the land doesn't merely conceal secrets, it guards them like a dragon over treasure. Even after decades of poking, digging, and scholarly head-scratching, Cappadocia's underground cities are still cloaked in mystery. The stone walls don't talk, but the questions they raise could fill 1,000 scrolls. Not just how these caverns were carved, but when historians come up short, myths come galloping in like overeager knights, trying to plug every hole with a story. One of the most stubborn puzzles. The true age of these hidden kingdoms. Officially, the main tunneling boom is pinned to the Byzantine era, when Christians needed to duck and cover from various marauders. But a few brave or possibly bored researchers suggest some tunnels go back 4,000 years or more. That's pre-alphabet territory. So the question becomes, what in the name of woolly mammoths drove folks underground back then? Enter the theories because, do we humans love a good what if? Some claim these were fallout shelters for ancient disasters, floods of biblical proportions, solar temper tantrums, volcanic winters, take your pick. With their secret entrances and sealed chambers, the cities could have been cozy doomsday bunkers, the ancient version of prepping. Others, naturally, point to the stars, or rather, who came from them. Ancient astronaut theorists suggest early civilizations may have used these cities to hide from terrifying visitors being so powerful they were mistaken for gods. Giants, say some local tales, once stomped around the surface, sending people scurrying below like squirrels before a thunderstorm. Other legends speak of fire from the skies and enemies with eyes that glowed like dragon lanterns. Sounds a bit dramatic, perhaps, but every tale starts somewhere. Some say it was all spiritual, that descending into the earth was a sacred rite, a journey into the underworld, a kind of dusty baptism where souls were reborn. Were these places temples? Or were they tombs of memory, sealed shut so well that even time forgot where it left them? The truth is, no single theory fits neatly. Like trying to cram a giant into a goblin-sized tunic. The scale, the age, the mind-boggling precision, it just doesn't add up with what we know. And maybe that's the most unsettling part. Because sometimes what's buried isn't just history. Sometimes it's something we were never supposed to find. Today, travelers stroll through Cappadocia's surreal valleys, passing fairy chimneys glowing orange in the sunset. Hot air balloons drift lazily above like giant floating bread loaves. But beneath those peaceful paths lies a hidden world, a city carved in darkness, holding its breath for millennia. Tourists now wander its narrow stairwells, shuffle through low tunnels, and stand in ancient kitchens and meeting rooms, marveling at how anyone could live down here. And yet, we've only scratched the surface. Some rooms remain sealed. Some tunnels crumble into mystery. Some doors open into nowhere, do they? These aren't just ruins, they're monuments to grit. Proof that when the world goes mad, people dig in literally. To protect their children, their faith, and maybe their sanity. And in doing so, They left behind a message not inked on scrolls, but chiseled in stone. We don't know their names. We don't know their stories. But we do know this. They were clever. They were builders. They were thinkers. And they created something meant to last through silence, through centuries, ... and perhaps to stay hidden forever. Cappadocia reminds us that not all history lies in plain sight. Some truths were buried on purpose, hidden from conquerors, from the curious, maybe even from time itself. And what lingers? Mystery in the rolling stone doors that still lock with a perfect fit. In the air shafts that whisper ancient winds. In the tunnels that disappear into darkness, untouched and unlicked. Maybe the real secret of Cappadocia's underground world isn't one we're meant to solve. But as you walk those silent halls, with stone above and centuries behind, you feel it a presence, not of fear, but of resilience. Because when chaos ruled above, the people of Cappadocia chose to face the dark together, and the earth. She's kept their secret well. To the ancient mind, sleep wasn't just bedtime, it was cosmic business. Dreams weren't dismissed as nighttime nonsense. They were taken as seriously as tax collection or prophecy. To doze off was to step across a border, into a realm where gods might poke you in the brain with divine wisdom or a cosmic warning. For ancient folks, the line between the real and the spiritual was as thin as a monk's patience. And during sleep, that line practically vanished. Dreaming was sacred. Weird, yes, but sacred. The night was prime time for messages from on high, sometimes whispered, sometimes yelled, and almost always confusing. A single dream could alter the fate of a kingdom, spark a war, inspire a temple, or result in a truly ill-advised haircut. From Mesopotamia to Egypt to ancient Greece, dreams held the weight of fate. And dreamers weren't just sleepyheads, they were vessels for cosmic truths. Some even got promoted to prophets. All while still in their pajamas, whole professions revolved around dream deciphering. Shamans, priests, oracles, seers, they were the medieval customer support hotline for divine voicemail. A snake in a dream might mean healing, or betrayal, or that you ate too much goat before bed. Interpretation was an art, one culture-specific and laced with layers of symbolism. And while we today speak of chasing dreams or dreaming big, back then, dreams weren't metaphor. They were instructions, real enough to risk lives over, powerful enough to sway kings. Long before Freud and REM cycles, the Sumerians were already deep into dream decoding. These clever scribes, living over 5,000 years ago, were the first to write their dreams down in clay tablets, no less. And they didn't treat dreams like quirky tales. Oh no, these were divine telegrams from celestial post offices. Their kings had court-appointed dream interpreters, men whose job it was to squint at your nightmare about flying goats and determine whether the gods were offering guidance or just messing with you. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, both Gilgamesh and Enkidu are bombarded with symbolic dreams before they set off to battle monsters. Gilgamesh dreams of falling stars and collapsing mountains, visions interpreted by his mother and priests as divine warnings. Sumerians divided dreams into two types: the good ones, sent by gods with purpose, and the empty ones, just mental junk mail, telling one from the other. That's where the pros came in, okay? Dream priests, omen readers, and professional bedtime prophets studied patterns and symbols like the fate of their entire city depended on it, because sometimes, okay, temples had special dream chambers where people slept in hopes of receiving visions. Kings, too, curled up on sacred cushions, hoping for a divine sleepover. In short, dreaming wasn't just something that happened to you. It was something you prepared for, honored, and feared. So next time you wake up from a dream of talking frogs and levitating cheese wheels, ... remember, in another time, someone might have built a temple around that. In the days of yore, before folks had alarm clocks and therapists, they had dreams, and those dreams were serious business. What we now call dream incubation likely first sprouted in the land of the Sumerians. These weren't just your average nighttime brain rambles, oh, no. Sacred dreams were treated like divine telegrams, sometimes even more reliable than signs seen in the waking world. Kings and chieftains. Ever the opportunists would often say, "The gods told me in a dream." Not because they had sleep disorders, but because it gave their royal decisions a sprinkle of holy endorsement. In Sumerian lore, the world itself was buzzing with meaning and dreams. They were its native tongue. A lion in a dream. Omen, a falling star. Cosmic warning. Ignore such signs, and you might just wake up to a heavenly smiting. Now, if you wandered down the Nile to the land of pyramids and sandstorms, you'd find the Egyptians weren't snoozing on dream power either. Dreams, to them, were more than bedtime stories. They were doorways to divine realms. Sleep wasn't just rest, it was a practice run for death. You know, just in case eternity had a dress code. Like their Sumerian cousins, the Egyptians sorted dreams into two camps: truth. Dreams courtesy of the gods, and false dreams courtesy of indigestion or bad beer. Temples dedicated to gods like Serapis and Thoth were practically ancient dream hotels. Folks would sleep inside, hoping to catch a spiritual message or even a miracle cure. And yes, some dreamt their ailments away. One legendary relic, the Ramses Dream Book, written on a scroll around 1300 BCE, was basically the ancient version of Dream Google. It had over 100 dream entries. Eat crocodile meat in your sleep. Congrats, you're crushing your enemies. Drink warm beer in your dream. Oops, sorrow's coming. The pharaoh's generals and temple priests took this stuff as gospel. Why? Because dreams were seen as visits from gods or, occasionally, nosy dead relatives. To ward off nightmare gremlins, folks even used protective spells. In tombs, kings often bragged about dreams where divine beings handed them their crown or gave career advice from the beyond. Dreams weren't fantasy, they were heaven's memos. Now hop across the sea to Greece, where dreams became a peculiar brew of medicine, myth, and philosophical musings. The Greeks weren't just wondering what dreams meant, they were also asking why we dream in the first place. Enter the Asclepian spa resorts for your soul, dedicated to Asclepius, god of healing. Here, pilgrims bathed, fasted, and sacrificed chicken's rib, all to prepare for a snooze so sacred it might just fix their sciatica. Dreamers hoped Asclepius himself would swing by their dreams, offer a diagnosis, maybe even do some mystical dream surgery. Priests called therapeuti played doctor-interpreters, translating dreams into treatment plans. Folks left those temples feeling better and grateful enough to carve their thanks into stone walls. But don't think the Greeks were all about dream medicine. Oh no. In Homer's epics, Zeus sends dream messages like divine voicemails. One such message even tricks Agamemnon into battle, and Penelope. She breaks it down with two dream gates, one for Truthhorn, one for Lie's Ivory. Basically, the original fact-checking system. Greek philosophers like Aristotle and Heraclitus tried to explain dreams logically, while one Artemidorus of Daldis wrote a 5-book dream guide that even covered different dreams for merchants, nobles, and shepherds. Dream diversity, ancient-style. To the Greeks, when you slept, your soul took a stroll away from your body like a kid sneaking out at night tanned in that liminal space. You could bump into divine truths or internal reflections. Either way, dreams were never just fluff, and across all ancient lands, Sumer, Egypt, Greece, dreams weren't just sleepy thoughts. They were seen as prophecies. People believed the dream world twisted time, letting them peek into the future. Rulers made war or peace based on these bedtime visions. Misread one, and you could lose a kingdom. Nail it, and you might rewrite history in Mesopotamia. Celestial dream stars falling, blood rivers, eclipses were tracked like omens of doom. Priests logged them into scrolls like divine weather reports. When things got hairy, rulers cracked. Open the dream logs for guidance. In Egypt, dreams got royal PR treatment. Take Pharaoh Thutmose IV. He claimed the Great Sphinx promised him the throne in a dream, provided he gave it a good dusting. Whether true or just a clever bit of propaganda, it worked. Even Alexander the Great got in on the action, dreaming of the Egyptian god Serapis before stomping into Persia. He took it as a celestial thumbs up. But it wasn't just the mighty who dreamed of greatness. Ordinary folk used dreams to predict marriage, babies. Bad colds are worse. Our Tomaterus Dream Guide covered everything. Lose a tooth, deaths. Nearby, fly in a dream, a big change is coming. Dreaming was like checking the divine calendar, but it also brought dread. What if you misread a warning? Because in a world where the gods texted you through dreams, going to sleep wasn't just shutting your eyes, it was entering a negotiation with destiny. And finally, let us not forget the dream temples, ancient wellness retreats for body and soul. From Greece to Egypt to Mesopotamia, folks didn't just gulp down herbs or trust pointy sticks to cure them. No, they chased healing through divine dreams. These sanctuaries offered incubation, where pilgrims fasted, bathed, maybe gave a goat or two, and then lay down to sleep in sacred chambers, waiting for wisdom or a miracle. Because sometimes healing didn't come from medicine. It came from dreams. In the olden days, when folks still thought the stars held secrets and owls were wizards in disguise, there was a curious belief. One could drift off to sleep and send a formal RSVP to the divine. A kind of dear gods, I'm ready, please visit. And, lo, they often did. Dreamers would find themselves face to face with glowing deities or sassy spirits offering advice, healing remedies, or believe it or not, doing a bit of celestial surgery right there in dreamland. Some folks dreamt of snakes curling gently around their bodies. Don't scream, it was sacred, symbols of the great Asclepius himself. Others were bathed in holy light or got a surprise touch from divine fingers. Good morning. Once they woke, they'd shuffle over to the local temple, where priests moonlighted as dream interpreters. These holy sleep whisperers would listen, nod sagely, and then prescribe your post-dream to-do list. Maybe drink a funky herbal brew, walk a mystical footpath, or sacrifice a particularly plump goat in gratitude. Sometimes the dream itself was the cure. That's right. No potions, no ointments. Just a good divine nap. And this wasn't some fringe fad for bored villagers. Nay, thousands of folks flocked to these dream temples. The walls themselves were covered in graffiti from the grateful, cured of blindness. Thanks, Zeus, or no more fever, praise be to Morpheus. Whether the healing was physical, spiritual, or just a well-timed placebo, belief was a powerful potion. Dream healing wasn't unique to one corner of the world either. Egyptians had temples for Serapis and Imhotep, dream deities with the best night shift. Over in Mesopotamia, people paid visits to Gula, goddess of medicine and sweet dream sessions. What tied all these places together was a simple, enchanting belief. The body and the soul were besties, and the soul-shy thing spoke loudest in dreams. Healing, then, wasn't just patching the body. It meant finding harmony between the earthly and the ethereal. In these silent sanctuaries, dreams weren't seen as bedtime nonsense. They were considered straight-up medicine. But dreams weren't just for healing your aching knees or curing your hiccups. Oh no. In the ancient world, the land of dreams was also a hotline to the dearly departed. That's right, your grandma could call in from the afterlife. No subscription required. Across many civilizations, Folks believed that dreams were the perfect moment for the veil between the living and the dead to go delightfully see-through. Dreaming of a loved one who'd passed on wasn't just your brain being. Nostalgic chit was often seen as a literal visit from the beyond. A message, a warning, or a reminder that you forgot their birthday offering last week. In Egypt, dreams were a magical mailbox to the underworld. The soul, or Ka, was believed to wander off during sleep visiting tombs, saying hello to ancestors and probably asking for directions. If your great-uncle appeared in your dreams looking grumpy, it might mean he needed more offerings, or he just really missed you. The Egyptians even wrote letters to the dead real incant papyrus stuff, then left them in tombs, politely requesting blessings or advice. The hope that the response would float back in a dream like a ghostly voicemail. Over in Mesopotamia, dream visitations from the dead were treated with reverence and just a smidge of worry. The departed were thought to still wield serious influence, and if they dropped into your dreams uninvited, it might mean you'd skipped a sacred step in their burial. Time to break out the ritual purification and say you're sorry. Greeks were dream fans too. Homer's Odyssey had Odysseus talking to spirits in the underworld, much like how some believed the deceased could visit you in your sleep. Heraclitus, who always sounded like he was one wine goblet away from a revelation, once said, "The waking have one world in common, but the sleeping each retreat into their own." In that private world, ghosts welcome, and it wasn't just the Mediterranean crowd. All around the world, people believed the dead weren't truly gone, that dreams were their way of whispering back. When the voice of a lost child or parent called out in the darkness, it wasn't poetic. It was sacred, real to the ancients. Sleep wasn't an escape, was a reunion. Now, these dreams were not always straightforward bedtime stories. Oh no, dear reader, they were riddles. Wild imagery, cryptic symbols, flying pigs probably, and, behind it all, the belief that dreams were divine messages in code. In Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Greece, there were professional dream readers, part priest, part detective, full-time symbol whisperers. These folks memorized dream books thicker than a cow's hind leg and could tell you exactly what it meant if you dreamt of a rooster with human teeth. Spoiler: bad harvest, dream interpretation was serious business. It could affect politics, medicine, even whether you sailed off to war. And while some symbols showed up often like snakes, fire, or flying, they didn't always mean the same thing. One dream's snake might mean danger. Another's might mean personal growth, or that you really shouldn't eat pickled onions before bed. In Egypt, they had entire books of dream meanings. Dream you're drowning. Stormy emotions ahead. Blind in a dream. Maybe you're about to see something truthy. The ancient Greeks went full academic on the matter, one chap. Artemidorus of Daldis even wrote a 5-volume dream manual called the Woneric Ridica. He argued that dream meanings depended on context. A farmer dreaming of a flood meant something quite different than a sailor dreaming the same dot. A radical idea for the 2nd century. A personal experience mattered. How modern of him. Dream interpretation wasn't done in a vacuum either. Dreams were woven into a larger cosmic net of omens, portents, chicken bones, and divine side-eyes. Some dreamers would consult oracles, draw lots, or leave offerings just to double-check their dream decoding. Others kept dream journals, sets, onto papyrus or clay tablets to share wisdom with the village. Dear Diary, last night I was kissed by a goat. Interpret that, Demetrius. To ancient minds, dream symbols weren't subconscious squiggles, they were divine messages. Keys to fate, clues from the gods. You just had to learn how to read the stars. Today, we often treat dreams like dust-drifting images forgotten by breakfast. At best, fodder for your therapist or an abstract painting. But the ancients, they gave dreams a front-row seat at the table. Dreams were sacred, structured, even state-sanctioned. They offered healing, connection to ancestors, even sneak previews of divine judgment. Then came the Enlightenment, science, and a whole lot of skepticism. Dreams were kicked off their golden throne and shoved into the broom closet of brain chemistry. From holy visions to synaptic static, from divine whispers to memory burps. But even now, despite all our tech and therapy apps, we still cling to dreams when it counts. A visit from a loved one, a nightmare that won't quit, a hunch that haunts. Modern psychology, thanks to Freud and Jung, tried to bring back a bit of that ancient dream respect. Just with more cigars and couches. What the old world understood was this: the dream realm isn't a separate kingdom, it's a mirror, a shadow, a place where truth dresses up in strange costumes and dances across your mind. Maybe, just maybe, we've forgotten how to listen, to sit with our eyes closed and ears open. Because while the waking world chatters, the sleeping one whispers. And the ancients from Sumer to Sparta understood this one great secret: dreams are not echoes of the mind. They are the sacred language of the soul.